He said my BFF divorcing her cheating husband was stupid, so I decided to make him single too. I was about to warm some milk when the call came, so I turned off the stove and hurried out the door, heart pounding, straight to Diana's house. Timothy, her son, practically flew to the door when he saw me grabbing my hand like a lifeline. "You two are so close, Aunt Esther, please come talk to my mom. Everything was fine, and now she wants to divorce my dad." "I don't understand why," she asked. Frowning. "No, she didn't tell you," said, "she's had enough, but what's the point after all these years?" Before I could enter the house, I heard Tomas shouting from the living room, "I swear, you're just having a damn midlife crisis. I had said something about your food being too salty, and now you want a divorce. This is crazy, for heaven's sake. Could you not?" I called out as I entered, my tone sharper than I meant to be, and there was Diana, my friend of almost 30 years, sitting on the couch with her arms crossed, eyes cold, and a silent expression on her face. I said that after all these years she still hasn't figured out how to properly season a dish, and that's all. Suddenly, she's storming off like I insulted royalty because she's too precious to hear a single complaint anymore, and she's been on this mood swing roller coaster since she retired. Since then, though, she's been on this mood swing roller coaster, and nothing's ever good enough. He's always out at yoga dance classes, who knows what else, barely home, and I never said a word. Tomas began to lash out again, but I swiftly moved between them and pushed him gently toward the door. "Go cool off for a minute, let me talk to her alone." The door closed behind him with a heavy thud, and the second it did, Diana's tears came out. "But now she's just plain impossible enough," I interrupted him, turning to Diana. "What's going on?" she finally said, her voice low but unwavering. "Don't try to talk me out of it, Esther." She wiped her eyes, but her voice remained steady. "I just don't want to do this anymore, Esther." I sighed, "But after all these years you've been through, this was supposed to be the time to finally enjoy life." She shook her head slowly. "Do you remember when he secretly bought a house and a car for his ex-girlfriend? That betrayal was something I never really got over." She had been holding back, obviously, and finally started to fall. I took a tissue from the box and gave it to her. Her voice became even more determined as the years went by, "But now that Timothy is older and we're getting older, I'm still the one keeping this house together. The moment I try to have a little space, pursue a hobby, or enjoy anything for myself, he makes fun of me and belittles me, and I've been swallowing my pride. It's been a thorn in my side for years, so I stayed because Timothy was still a child. Later, when his parents grew older, I stayed to care for them." She looked up at me then, and the tears were gone, replaced by a quiet, unshakable strength. "At our age, Esther, you begin to realize that some wounds never truly heal and that perhaps the only way to move on from them is to let go. Pride for decades, and I'm done." I leaned back and exhaled heavily. "You forgave him long ago, so why bring it up now?" "I never really forgave him, I just buried it to survive." When I returned from Diana's house, I felt empty, as if something had come undone inside of me. The truth is that George had also betrayed me once, back when we were younger, the year his mother was in the hospital. I was stunned not by what she said, but by how deeply I understood it. Her words echoed something I'd buried long ago in the quiet corners of my own heart, something I'd never dared to say out loud. A crucial promotion review at work, so I made an effort to take care of everything for him to lighten his load. I would get up early, balance my full-time job, prepare breakfast and dinner for our son, and still find time to visit his mother at the hospital every day. However, while I was exhausted and barely getting any sleep at all, George made one trip to the hospital, and that was all it took for him to become involved with Bianca, a young nurse assigned to his mother's room. He told me he didn't want to interrupt my sleep, saying he would stay at the office for a few nights, which I believed he was being thoughtful, but in reality, he was sleeping at Bianca's place instead of the office. I didn't find out until a year later, when Bianca appeared pregnant and demanded answers. Only then did George go to his knees, slap himself across the face, and ask for forgiveness. He claimed it had meant nothing, that it had been a mistake that he never imagined would go this far, but he was only a month away from starting middle school. I was furious, but I swallowed my anger for the sake of our son. Later, when George started ignoring Bianca, she attempted to force his. I wrote her a check for $100,000 and told her to leave because she threatened to expose everything unless he divorced me. On the way there, she was in a car accident, but she wasn't seriously hurt, but she lost the baby. After she was released from the hospital, she came to me calmly and deliberately, calculating whether I should step aside and let her marry George, or pay her for the emotional harm she had endured. I couldn't risk her making another scene because I couldn't let Bill find out when it would damage his perception of his father or divert him from his studies. How could it be that the wound never healed? It's been there deep in my heart like a splinter that I learned to live with but never forgot. Seeing what happened at Diana's house today somehow brought it all back to me and made me realize that perhaps it's time I stopped acting like everything was okay and finally took a close look at the marriage I've been holding together for all these years. Bill and his wife, Martha, were sitting on the couch, and I was still feeling uneasy about things. He was typing on his laptop, and she was browsing through her phone. "Hey, you're back," Martha said cheerfully, "and I have a nail appointment with a friend later. Could you feed Tony his bottle for me while I'm out?" I said absently, sinking into the armchair without saying anything else. "Is everything okay?" Martha immediately noticed my mood. Bill paused mid-typing, looking up with a furrowed brow, and I asked, "What? Diana's getting divorced?" "Come on, that doesn't make any sense at her age. Does she even know what life out there looks like?" She asked casually, "Are you planning to start yoga again? Will you still have time to help with Tony and Shek getting a divorce?" I remained silent for a moment, studying Bill, and then I asked, "Do you remember the year you were about to start middle school, that nurse who Bill used to come by looking for your dad?" He blinked and then laughed. "Oh, you mean Bianca?" I asked. "Yeah, she used to bring me chocolate all the time. She was your dad's mistress." The room fell silent, so I thought it was time for him to learn the truth, but Bill simply glanced down at his phone once more. "Nonchalant mom," he said. "I already knew you knew." My heart fell because a few years ago, shortly after I began working, I saw Dad bringing her fruit. What did he say? He told me everything that he had messed up back then, but he later helped her get a new job or something because, well, he said he felt sorry for her because she couldn't have children anymore after the accident. He said she had no one, but you have a family, you have us. Isn't that happiness enough? I stared at him in shock, and your father is still in contact with her. He hesitated, but he helped her find a new job. Even though I jumped up and down, I have no idea when this happened, it's not like I planned it. I'm just telling you what he said. What else did your father tell you? Nothing really, just that she's had a difficult life and that sometimes he helps out when he can, saying it was just being kind. I laughed bitterly, and he admitted that sleeping with her was part of his charitable work. Your father is a real saint, isn't he? Bill frowned. Mom. Come on, don't make it sound worse than it is. Don't make a big deal out of this, it's all over. What could Dad do now that he's old? I'm sure it's just him trying to help her. And where do you think the money he uses to help her comes from? It's not like it's a lot of money, he muttered to himself. Then George came in. Oh, what a terrible day for fishing. He moaned and rubbed his lower back, barely catching anything. Is dinner ready, sir? He asked. I'm talking to you. Where's dinner? Did you go out chatting with Diana again? And could you please take care of things at home before running off to socialize? I ignored him and asked flatly, when did you arrange Bianca's job transfer? George froze mid-step, asking, what are you bringing her up out of nowhere? He kicked off his shoes and asked, have you just been sitting here? Bill frantically gestured to him, trying to signal something with his eyes, but George didn't notice. Tried to laugh and dismiss me by saying, I'm asking you when exactly did you help her get that transfer? He looked at Bill, who immediately ducked his head behind his laptop. Esther, can we please not do this again? George snapped, I'm the scum of the earth, and I was wrong. How many times are we going to go over this, F? What do you want me to do? Jump off a building to atone for it? Why are you making this a scene? I haven't done anything to you. I've just walked in, and you're already giving me attitude. Transfer jobs. I said nothing more, just stared at him with unwavering intensity until I realized I wouldn't back down. George sighed in defeat. Okay, so I helped Bianca get a transfer because she's been unable to work night shifts due to health issues since that accident. I felt responsible, so I just wanted to do something to make her stop showing up. I laughed coldly, but are you the one who couldn't let go? Little care packages, surprise visits, spare money, oh, come on, it's just stuff you wouldn't even care about, junk really, things you'd probably toss anyway. Why are you holding on to the past like this? I swear I only helped her get that one transfer back in 2006, and nothing else since. I put myself through so much that year that I ended up getting sick. The doctor told me my immune system was too weak and suggested I began taking vitamins and collagen supplements on a regular basis to restore my health. I still recall standing in the health aisle for a long time, wanting to buy those bottles of organic supplements but deciding against it because they were simply too costly. However, a few days later, I discovered that $5,000 had disappeared from our bank account. When I questioned George about it, he explained that there had been some reorganization at work and that he needed to host dinners and purchase gifts to keep his network strong and secure his job. So what you really mean is that you spent that money on oh, come on, that was years ago, and what gave you the right to spend our money on another woman behind my back? George jumped to his feet, saying, "It was years ago, and you didn't know about it then, and nothing happened to you. Why the hell are you blowing up about it now?" "Oh, come on, that was ages ago," said Bianca, in the guise of networking. "What's going on?" Martha said, leaving the bedroom. "I was the idiot in the dark. You all still see me as a member of this family, so we just didn't want to upset you." "Come on, if I'd known you'd react like this, I wouldn't have said anything," Bill muttered. "I just didn't think you'd still care so much after all this time." "Oh, I care too much. My mom had just finished my makeup when she learned about Bianca." "Why would you even tell her?" Martha whispered back, obviously irritated, "But I heard every word, so you knew too." Martha tried to keep the peace by stepping in cautiously, "But Esther, if you're hurt, talk it out with George. If you're upset, then talk it out with George." "Well, maybe I care too much, maybe I'm petty, but I'm also done pretending." "Wait, Mom, you're not considering getting a divorce either, are you, like Diana?" Bill stared at me in shock, like he was seeing me for the first time in his life. The last bit of bitterness that was rising in my throat was calmly suppressed as I said, "I'm done wasting my time in a marriage built on lies." "I swear you've lost your mind." I thought, life swallowing disappointment playing the good wife. Keeping this family running. Why shouldn't I want a life of my own now? George, standing there completely blind to his own guilt, would never understand that I was just being unreasonable. "There's nothing left to talk about," George snapped. "You really think this won't make you a laughingstock at your age?" I said, "I'm sorry, you said you forgave me. What more do you want from me?" He jabbed a finger at me as if I had done something wrong. "When does it end?" "Hey, stop shouting." Martha and Bill jumped in to separate us, each grabbing one of us by the arm. Martha pulled me into the bedroom in an attempt to calm me down. "Esther, you've always been the bigger person, even when Bianca caused a scam back then. Remaining silent, you cleared up George's mess, and now you're bringing it up again. Wasn't all that work wasted?" She gave me a gentle back rub while she talked, saying, "Let me in, Bill. Talk to George and get him to apologize again. Maybe that'll help, right? I mean, it's not like he spent much on her recently, so don't make yourself sick over this." "I'm not angry anymore," I said quietly. The fire had burned out, and all that was left in me now was a deep, steady. Martha appeared relieved and said, "I don't need an apology." I said, "I just want a divorce." George and I had started living apart that day, and he stormed out in a rage, yelling that we would live on our own from now on. I showed him the door and made sure he didn't return. In fact, we had 2 spare condos that were being rented out, but they were both a little far from home. Bill was worried about his father, so he ended up renting him a place nearby in the same neighborhood. In the days that followed, B made multiple attempts to dissuade me. At our age, stability is what matters most. If you divorce now, who will take care of you if you get sick? What about your finances? Single life isn't as easy as you think. Are you sure you're cut out for it? I understood their concerns, but I didn't resent them for saying them. He even brought over a few friends to help convince me. These friends were mostly former neighbors or coworkers who stood firmly on the outside looking in, with no real understanding of my pain or the years of exhaustion I'd carried. I realized how exhausted I was from being the family's unseen pillar of support, from always putting others before myself, and from continuously ignoring my own feelings in order to maintain harmony. A few days later, I entered the living room, and he was there once more. "What are you doing here?" I scowled, his eyes widening in defiance. "This is my house, why shouldn't I be here?" I nearly laughed. "Wasn't it you, George, who said we'd part ways? You're over 50 and the same man who had once sworn he would never." See, Bianca again stood in front of me as if nothing had happened, but he snapped. "What is this midlife rebellion, throwing your husband out like the younger generation? What do you think this makes you, powerful or something?" "No," I said coolly. "I just don't like filth in my house." His face flushed, and his voice, "I gave you a chance to save face, so don't push your luck, don't let me move back in, and don't come begging me later. I'm giving you dignity here." I didn't even bother arguing, so I slowly got up and walked over to the table to pour myself a cup of tea. "There we go, that's better," he muttered, adding that old couples shouldn't hold grudges overnight anyhow. Hey, what the hell? The cup was empty now. I'd thrown the cold tea directly at him. "George, could you please, for once in your life, follow through on your promises? If you had the courage to leave, why would you crawl back now?" He was furious, "And you're unbelievable. Go ahead and follow Diana's lead, an elderly woman attempting to start over like a teenager, and see how that works out for you both. I promise you will both regret this. You don't want me around? No problem, I have plenty of places to go." George then slammed the door and left, and I assumed he must have hurried to Bill to voice his displeasure. Because I heard Bill and Martha talking to Diana on the phone in the living room that same evening. "Aunt Diana, what exactly did you say to my mom the other day? She's saying she wants a divorce too. Come on, Diana. I understand that you and my mom are close, but your divorce is your business. Did you really need to involve her in it? Is this some sort of contagious trend? They had the phone on speaker, and I could hear everything Diana said, even from behind my bedroom door. I don't think Esther's decision to get a divorce came from talking to me. I'm sure she had her reasons for a long time, but she's just reached a point where she can't keep enduring it anymore. You're over 30, married, and employed. You don't need your mother glued to your side anymore. Diana stated bluntly that adults should understand that people have the right to make their own choices, even if you're her son. You can't truly feel the pain your mother has carried, so you don't get to dictate how she should live her life. There was a lengthy silence before Bill finally answered. I suppose I never really gave it much thought. The only reason Esther didn't leave your father years ago was because of you. Don't you think she suffered long enough? What's so horrible about divorce anyway? We're following the law and doing it correctly. What's wrong with that? After 30 or so years with George, how many more years is she supposed to keep sacrificing herself? Are you saying your mother doesn't even have the right to leave a marriage that has made her miserable? Diana's question. If mom really goes through with this, what happens to dad, is a good one. Where was George's concern about consequences when he cheated on her or when he stayed in contact with Bianca all these years? Did he ever think about how Esther would feel back in my room? Made me laugh. Diana, who has been embroiled in argument after argument about her own divorce lately, had obviously sharpened her argument skills with Raz. Poor Bill didn't stand a chance. Bill was sitting on the couch looking completely deflated when I stepped out, and he muttered, I don't even recognize Aunt Diana anymore. I laughed coldly, not sure if they were convinced or had given up. You remember when you had that high fever in high school and almost got pneumonia? Your father was away on a business trip, and he was probably playing with Bianca. Diana drove you to the hospital in the middle of the night, and she stayed by your side the entire time until you were discharged. I didn't mean it that way. He sighed, lowering his head. I just wanted you both to be okay. You've been together for so long that it's not easy to just let that go. I gave him a gentle shoulder pat. My son tried to see this from my side. If after all these decades I've still made the decision to walk away, then it's not out of anger. Of danger, and now you say you don't recognize her. Maybe it's not Diana who's changed. Maybe it's even you. Or impulse, it's because I've really given it some thought. I've spent my entire life doing what was best for other people. There were a lot of things I wanted to do but never could, and now I just want to do one thing. I want to divorce your father. I didn't say anything else because I thought I should give him time to think it out. Later that night, I saw Diana had sent me a message stating, "What's going on? I just heard from your son you're really divorcing George too." I replied, I finally made up my mind, you're right, there's no point. I've been arguing with people non-stop, and half the time I smiled while typing back a reply that was part encouragement for her and part a reminder to myself that we'll get through this. She sent back a voice message, and her tone was earnest and sincere. If you're really sure, then of course I won't try to talk you out of it, but I have to tell you that this path isn't easy. I've learned firsthand that the moment you file for divorce, everyone who believes they know what's best for you will crawl out of the woodwork. It will be a long battle, sure, but once we've made up our minds, no amount of noise from the sidelines can shake us. If you ever need backup, just say the word, deal, she wrote a few days later. I didn't think Diana would actually need my help. Urgently that afternoon when I received a frantic message from her. Tomas and Timothy dragged all of my friends and family to my house, saying, "Get over here, it's chaos." I jumped in a cab and hurried over. The front door was wide open, and the house was crowded. The neighborhood is treating it like a comedy show, and David has been yelling about divorce so much that if it were me, I would be embarrassed. His wife, Laura, timed it right on cue, and she's right. Elders, kids, and neighbors are all crammed into Diana, and we're only here to talk some sense into you. David told Moss's older brother at our age that threatening divorce is just asking for trouble. At this point in life, Diana, friendship is what really counts. David and I have had our arguments and difficult times, but I never once thought about divorcing. Instead, other people joined us right away. Any issue between a husband and wife can be resolved, so why throw everything away now, just when things should get easier? What about Timothy? He's been so stressed lately that he can't sleep, so he called us to help him make sense of things. Diana, you've always been an example. We've known you for years, and we just don't want to see you make a mistake in the heat of the moment. Diana calmly and poisedly took a slow sip of tea as they all spoke over each other. When they finally quieted down, she cleared her throat and asked, "Are you all finished? Tomas's mother has been a wonderful wife, and all of us younger people looked up to you. However, if you two get divorced now, who knows what gossip will circulate? And steady, good. Now it's my turn. First, if you believe that people of my age shouldn't be able to divorce, feel free to change the law to forbid divorce after 50. Second, Timothy is almost 30 years old. I raised him, he has a career, he's married, I've done my job as a mother, and whatever happens in his future is up to him, my divorce won't ruin him. Third, what if I was a good wife, was I sold to this family? Just because I was good to you doesn't mean I have to be. With a piercing smile, she turned to Laura and said, remember when David was sneaking around with that coworker, taking her out on dates and even buying her a luxury handbag while you were still dragging around your reusable grocery bag to work? Your servant until I drop dead. David frowned and tried to speak again. Come on, Diana, you've misunderstood. We're only trying to help. Oh, since we're being honest, I've got some helpful things to say too, she said, turning to Laura. Diana raised an eyebrow, asking, did you know that David has been skimming off his paycheck for years to blow it on God knows what, clubs, drinks, whatever? He's been doing it behind your back for more than 10 years. Laura turned sharply toward David. Is that true? David stammered, I'll explain when we get home. I forgave him a long time ago, unlike you, and I don't see the point in bringing up old dirt. No, you'll explain in front of everyone. Laura yelled at you. Your entire damn family is here. What are you afraid of, Diana? This is getting out of control. Susie, David's daughter-in-law, stepped in to try to calm things down, but Diana wasn't done. Perhaps you were unaware, but John's little story about you being his first love was a complete lie. He dated someone else for 8 years. Laura would frequently bring her home for dinner. I hoped he would leave you and go back to that girl. Susie's hand froze, but I knew something wasn't right. She yelled, turned, and gave John a hard slap across the face. Was your last trip to San Francisco, ISCO, really for work, or were you seeing her? I promise, just let me explain. I'm not good enough, huh? I could do so much better than you. You're nothing more than a grown man who still clings to his mother. If anyone files for divorce, it will be me. Laura exploded when you called her a mama's boy, and without warning. The room was filled with people shouting, pointing fingers, arguments, secrets, grudges, and long-buried resentment. Tomas and Timothy attempted to act as peacemakers but ended up getting yelled at in the crossfire. The whole scene was filled with mayhem, and eventually the shouting wore everyone out, and David, looking utterly disheveled, staggered toward the door and yelled. Diana's mother-in-law was almost bedridden, and they had long agreed to rotate care for one son annually, so no nursing homes should take it up with your brother. Diana said icily, I'm done playing nurse-aide, adding bitterly, but just so we're clear, Mom's been living at my house for a year now, and it's your turn to take care of her divorce or not. With a look that said, if you make things ugly, I'll burn it all down with you, Diana sat cross-legged like a queen watching a show while sipping her tea. David turned to Tomas furious and dragged him out of the house to discuss when he would take over the caregiving duties. You walked over logging. You called me here in such a hurry, and I didn't even get a chance to play a part, the woman said, laughing. Seeing your amazing friend Diana in action, I gave her the thumbs up. You have a sharp tongue and steely nerves, she huffed. I've been the quiet, selfless one for years. Did they really think that a few self-righteous speeches would change my mind? People like that never really understand unless they've been through your pain. All they see is a woman too old to cause trouble, and David's family doesn't care about anything but honor and decency. She took another sip of tea. Normally, I'm very reasonable and kind, and I only bring out the fireworks when absolutely necessary. I burst into laughter, as I hadn't felt this light in a long time. How are things on your end? She asked, handing me a handful of nuts. I'm done trying to reason with people who don't want to understand. Sometimes exposing their dirty laundry is the only way to make them realize why I'm walking away. Bill and Martha had taken turns trying to talk me out of it these past few days, feeling that I wasn't bluffing anymore. I chased him out with a mop and called a locksmith that same afternoon to change the locks because he had softened his stance the other day. He said, all this fighting is pointless, let's both take a step back, admit some faults, and move on. One day, he yelled from outside the door, a bitter woman with a nasty temper, who'd want you? I could come over and give him a proper tongue lashing. Diana offered, eyes sparkling, I'm on fire today, honestly, after her 10 against 1 performance. It was difficult for me to believe that she was the same person who had sobbed on my shoulder only a few weeks prior. I shook my head, saying, this is my mess. I've lived half a life for everyone else, and now I'm finally living it for myself. That's not negotiable. She groaned as she stretched, saying, come on, taking my hand and walking arm in arm to the dance studio for today's class. The instructor assigned us both partners for the partner dance class, but we had only been dancing for a few minutes when Diana abruptly pulled me aside. What's wrong? I whispered. Did that old guy try something funny? Show, she said, gesturing toward the window overlooking the park. I turned to see if that was George and Bianca. Oh well, speak of the devil, even if Bianca turned. Bianca, wearing a pale blue dress with her hair pinned up, was sitting with George and Diana on a bench. She was brimming with fire and leaning in, saying softly, "I swear, Esther, I'll tear them both apart right here." I smiled icily and let them go. We marched straight into the garden and stood in front of them, arms crossed and faces sharp as knives, and George Diana practically shouted his name loud enough for everyone in the park to turn and stare. Bianca's hand was still resting on George's collar just a few moments before, and she had been adjusting it tenderly while having an affair in the open. Now that I added my voice, sharp and biting, all the eyes were on us, and George, the coward, turned pale. His first instinct was not to explain but to snatch Bianca's hand off him and run away like a guilty child. Oh no, not so quickly. I stepped forward, blocking his path, grabbing him by the arm, and asking what's going on. I sneered, that was one hell of a conversation, fixing his collar and all, looking to me like they were about to kiss. Diana chimed in loudly, drawing even more attention. George realized there was no escape and hung his head low, trying to shield his face like a criminal caught red-handed. "The issue is that you can't face what you've done. Are you even a man?" Bianca's face turned bright red, and she tried to avoid the stares and mumbled, "We're just friends just talking." "I'm not the other woman." Bianca finally broke out, raising her voice, but her denial only earned her more mental stares. "Oh my god, this park visit just got so interesting." Diana looked thrilled by the spectacle, sighing theatrically. "Perhaps. You can't blame him for that, as some people just can't resist reliving old flames." As she spoke, she tightened her grip on George's arm, holding him in place for maximum exposure. When Mistress Shameless met in public like that, George, as usual, remained silent and covered his face to hide from the crowd. Eventually, a park manager had to step in and escort the four of us to the administrative office to defuse the situation. Bill and Martha arrived quickly, and after taking one look at the crowd, the unkempt George slumped on the ground was enough to make Bill scowl in shock. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" he asked, clearly rubbing his temple. Diana shrugged her shoulders, displaying a picture of fake innocence. "Your dad was having a chance encounter with Bianca, practically sitting in each other's laps. Your mom and I happened to cross paths by chance." Dad, Bill sighed, clearly irritated. "Could you please stop causing chaos for once?" George turned to him right away, like a drowning man grabbing at a lifeline. "Your mother is acting irrationally. I was just out meeting a friend, and she appeared out of the blue. Caused a huge scene and embarrassed me in front of everyone." "Oh, please," I scoffed. "Save the victim act, George. You're not playing tricks on anyone. Don't blame your dad." Bianca said in a low, sweet voice that she was trying to play the martyr. "He has been acting very grumpy lately, and I was just trying to cheer him up. We weren't doing anything wrong, which is why we met in public, but your mom came in and made accusations. Why don't you treat your father with some compassion instead of reprimanding him?" Bill yelled at her, turning to face her. "Our family is already in disarray, and you're not helping. Do us a favor and stay away from my dad, alright?" "You really couldn't stop my mom from escalating things," Diana said, sighing. "I tried everything I could to keep things calm," she said, fanning herself with a paper flyer. "You have no idea how stressful it was. I'm sweating like crazy. Can't you handle your issues at home?" Martha muttered. "Keep your voice down and don't make such a public scene. It looks bad." "Oh, it looks bad?" I raised an eyebrow. Did it look good when George and Bianca were sneaking around for all these years? No one seemed to mind. "All right, let's all just calm down." One of the park security guards came over, obviously frustrated. "This is a public area, so please don't cause any more disturbances." Bill tried to quickly defuse the situation. "Yes, we're leaving. Give everyone more of a show." Bianca scurried to her feet, obviously ready to get away, but Diana was quicker. She reached out and gave her a quick tap on the shoulder, leaving Bianca behind. "However, didn't you say that everything was in the open, which is why she was so anxious?" Bianca's face paled, and George appeared as though he wanted to collapse under the weight of all the onlookers. We left the park as we got closer to the parking lot, and George lost control of himself. Voice full of annoyance, "How long do you intend to drag this out?" I laughed icily, "But if you're so desperate for peace, there's a simple solution: agree to the divorce. After the papers are signed, you can go out for coffee with whoever you want, date whoever you want, and no one will care." Bianca muttered to herself, "George, you should have left her a long time ago." I folded my arms and looked down at them both, "And that's great. The sooner we finish this divorce, the sooner I can wish you well for the rest of your life." I didn't have to scream, throw punches, or lose control, but this round was mine, and I got everything I needed. Damn, it felt good. Bill stood off to the side, rubbing his forehead, defeated. "Whatever you want." George remained silent, and Beyond kept her eyes on the ground, not daring to meet my gaze again. After everything at the park, Bill collapsed. Into a chair with a heavy sigh. Martha came home with me. In contrast to his defeated posture, FW moaned, I get it now, and you're really not turning back this time. I felt energized, as if I had just won a battle, and I was strangely proud when he said, all right, before he exhaled deeply. Okay, get the divorce, I won't stop you anymore, but I want you to promise me one thing. What is it you have to promise? Me that you won't find another man? I couldn't help but laugh aloud. He said, I never tried to control your high school crushes, but now that I'm older, you get to tell me whether I can date. I'm just looking out for you. He said, you've heard stories about people getting into new relationships without really knowing the other person, only to end up in another cage because you finally get out of one bad marriage. I don't want you to fall into another trap, and you think I'll come crying to you again asking for another divorce. You just don't want to deal with more family drama. Or made a fool of. That's all his voice conveyed, but it still annoyed me. What kind of scam do you think I'm going to fall for, Bill? Perhaps you should worry more about your dad. Bianca's no innocent little lamb, and let's hope she doesn't bleed him dry. That's not what I meant. I was just saying, well, as a woman, you're more likely to be taken advantage of. Listen to me, Bill. Don't you dare treat me. As he began his defense, he said, you and Dad spent your entire lives building up these 3 properties. People out there are ruthless. There is an entire industry built around scamming divorced seniors. You have no idea how dangerous the senior dating scene is. Not yours, you don't get to control my life, I'm not trying to control you. He rubbed his hair in frustration. Oh, if you really must date someone, just don't get legally married. Again. Oh, and you do, I said, raising an eyebrow. You've been out there dating seniors yourself, Mom, he moaned. You're missing the point, he said. These men are sweet talkers and manipulators, nobody is sincere except you two. Let's be honest, what you're really afraid of is me splitting the property with someone new at that Bill freeze. Martha was also silent, neither said another word, and property always complicates things, Diana said. She was eating a small piece of cake the following day while we relaxed at a massage parlor. You spend your entire life believing that love will return, but when you look around, nobody genuinely cares if you were happy in that marriage, they only care about what they stand to lose if you leave. The siblings are simply concerned that there won't be anyone to care for their elderly parents. Your husband is losing his free housekeeper, and your son is afraid that your money will wind up in the hands of someone else. I confess that I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Diana sighed and asked, what do you think is the most precious thing we have left? She didn't respond right away, but then she said, time is more valuable than ever because we've already wasted half of our lives every day. I nodded, I'm done wasting my life over petty property disputes. I want to. Leaning closer, she asked, what's your plan? Finish this divorce and start a new chapter. Take what's rightfully mine. Let go of what I can. Turn enemies into allies. Bring in reinforcements. Well, damn, she said, laughing. You've really leveled up these past few weeks, of course I have. I smiled. They say your 50s and 60s are the perfect age to reinvent yourself. The following day, I sat down with Bill and Martha to share my idea, and Martha's eyes widened in shock. That you're transferring the properties to us, she said. I said, one of the 3 is already in your name. I want the other 2 to be legally notarized and given to you before the divorce. You keep the documents. As for our investments and savings, we'll divide 80% between George and me and give you the remaining 20%. I had my pension, health insurance, and rental income, so I really didn't need much. In fact, the money would eventually go to them anyhow, so I might as well give it now and gain some goodwill. I needed allies, not another battlefield. The thing that surprised me the most was how quickly George agreed. After all those years of skulking around, it turned out that he really did want to marry Bianca. Perhaps he had genuine feelings for her, but he had been held back because Bill disapproved. Now that Bill had finally stepped aside, George didn't even hesitate to accept the property. This might actually work. Bill agreed right away that it would be better to lock things in before Dad loses his mind and gives everything to Bianca. 1 month later, Diana and I picked up our divorce certificates on the same day we left the courthouse, arm in arm, holding those documents in hand like badges of liberation. Behind us, George and Tomas both scoffed loudly, but finally, even the most meddling people gave up trying to talk her out of the divorce because Diana had become so fierce and sharp these days, like a blazing flame, untouchable, and impossible to argue with. Said sarcastically, looks like we're finally free, no more wives breathing down our necks, just freedom and peace from here on out, damn right. Life was about to get really easy, so Diana turned her head and gave them a look of pure contempt. Without answering, she just tightened her hold on my arm, and we got into the car, leaving those 2 men in the dust. After the divorce, Diana and I rented a villa together, and we planted when we weren't painting oil canvases or enjoying coffee in the sun. We were traveling, visiting small towns, national parks, and more. Neither of us did any housework again. We hired cleaners and assistants to help us out when we felt like it. We only cooked when we felt like it, but when we didn't, we ordered takeout, poured wine, and watched movies under fluffy blankets. One evening, we curled up on the couch with glasses of red wine in hand and wrapped in cozy throws, watching Roman Holiday. When Diana's delicate figure from Audrey Hepburn appeared on screen, she abruptly became silent. I turned to see her eyes glistening, and I asked softly, "What's wrong?" She wiped her eyes with a tissue, and it suddenly struck me that people like to say that women like us are bitter. AG agrees, just bitter old nags, she said, pausing, her voice cracking slightly. But what they don't understand is that no one is born bitter. Life pushes you into it. She whispered, "We still are those girls," and she laughed through her tears. Yeah, but with a few more wrinkles. We both burst out laughing, clinking our wine glasses, shoulders shaking like teenagers at a sleepover. She said, speaking to all the bright-eyed girls at once. For a brief moment, her words caused my own eyes to sting. I was in the garden with Diana sipping wine in the late afternoon sun when Bill appeared out of the blue a few months later. I put down my glass and raised an eyebrow, and he sighed deeply. "He's in bad shape, and he keeps calling your name. Do you want to go see him?" I wasn't particularly interested in going, but Diana clapped her hands together in excitement. "Oh, Tomas is in the hospital too. Come on, let's go sound. Like, it will be fun." So we went to the burn unit with Diana. As I entered the orthopedic ward, George was in poor condition, with his arm in a sling and his leg in a cast. When he saw me, his eyes filled with what appeared to be relief. "Esther." He moaned weakly and reached out a trembling hand, saying, "It hurts. Do you remember your beef stew? I've been craving it." I took a step back, grinning icily, and said, "Oh, George. I've been reading a lot of books lately, mostly written by younger authors, and one of the phrases that has stuck with me is, 'Karma will always find your address.'" He blinked in confusion, so I leaned in a little to tell him to behave, or else karma might find you sooner than you think. I turned and left the room after realizing I had left my phone inside, and I returned only to find a heated argument in the hospital room. I stuck with him through thick and thin for all these years, even though he didn't want me when he was younger. However, now that I've gotten him, you people just want to that house was signed over to us before you two got married, so there's no way your name can be added. I raised an eyebrow, indicating that George truly did leave everything to the kids and Bianca. He ended up with nothing, so what does he have? Bianca's voice was shrill, on the verge of H-bills. Martha responded with carefully measured patience, "What about his pension he promised to take?" He smiled politely but pointedly, "But don't worry. You said you cared about him, not his money. The house is gone, the savings are gone, but you still have him, and we fully support your relationship. You two should cherish each other." Bianca was stunned, her face drained of color, and I shook my head. "Care of me? Oh," his pension bill let out a dry chuckle. "Dad handed over that account to us ages ago. We set it aside for the grandkids' education fund." With a laugh, she turned to go, but as soon as Diana came back from the burn unit, I said, "How's Tomas?" She rolled her eyes theatrically, saying that no one was caring for him anymore. He had to prepare meals for himself, so he set the kitchen on fire and severely burned himself. His entire side looks terrible. Our blissful routine resumed at home a few days later, until Martha popped by with some juicy rumors. It appears that George had carefully considered his financial options prior to the divorce. He initially transferred the possessions to the children in order to complete the divorce, and then he formally gave the house to Bill in the hopes of getting married to Bianca. He must have truly loved her since he gave his pension to the family trust. Diana mocked him, but I laughed. George isn't a moron. He didn't intend to give her any money. All he wanted was a free nurse, and I added that Bianca was in a difficult situation. Bianca had nothing at the conclusion of the pause, no assets, no security. Just and Martha hired a housekeeper to free up their time while George, who was now in need of full-time care, she frequently stopped by to share more details about George and Bianca's ongoing arguments, she added, shaking her head. Bianca responds angrily to the head dad's outbursts, and he becomes so agitated that we're forced to contact, and we initially believed that allowing them to be together would be convenient because she was a nurse by profession. She wanted more. But it made sense for her to look after Dad to save us the trouble. Martha smirked as she went on, thinking she might get a house out of it, but since she is childless, why would she get one? Fortunately, we prepared ahead of time. She laughed, but now they're stuck, and she can't bear him. Martha looked at her, but she can't leave, and to be honest, we're just enjoying the show. I grinned and said, "Watch, I have to go pick up the kids. Talk next week. Won't be home the following week or month, so don't stop by and discover an empty house. She raised. And where are you going, Diana? Diana and I are heading to Antarctica on a cruise. Martha laughed softly and squinted before shaking her head. You know, Esther, sometimes it's really jealous of your existence. A week later, Diana and I boarded the magnificent ship that stretches out in front of us beneath the open sky. Wow, this thing is enormous, and Diana swirled eagerly. Barely moving at all. Do you think we'll see penguins? Of course, I leaned against the railing looking at the ice horizon, which is home to more than just penguins and countless auroras, glaciers, a whole universe of snow and quiet. She turned to face me and smiled. I think Diana and Esther would make a fantastic duo. What do you think? He had a long life, and our journey was filled with adventure. I chuckled and raised my champagne glass to hers. Was only getting started.